Mr. President.
Senator from Alabama.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to add on to what the other senators have said. We want to give our blessings and prayers to the people in the southern part of the country after all the tornadoes. I grew up in Arkansas, now live in Alabama, and there hadn't been a year gone by that we didn't have devastated communities, towns, cities across the South. It seems like it's an every year occurrence. There's been many people lost, many people injured. The TV trucks and news people will leave in the next couple of days, leaving the destruction behind for the people of these cities and towns to rebuild. And it's a tough time. It's going to be a tough time all around, not just for a few days, but for years. And our prayers go out to them and all the families that are getting ready to have to go through one of the toughest times of their lives. Mr. President, on the list of people that my Democratic colleagues are claiming to help on this Build Back Better Act, there's a huge blank. I worked in education all my life. I worked around people all my life. What's missing from this list is American families. American families all over this country. For example, the child care program in this tax and spend spree is really about only helping certain families, and that's fine, certain families, but we should help all families. But my colleagues want to help the ones that are structured toward the Democrats that they deem favorable, and that's not the American way. If you're in a two-parent working household, my colleagues' plan would cost mom and dad thousands more each year to pay for their child's care. Think about that, thousands more. This means tax many and give to a few. Oh, that's not what we do here. Additionally, a once bipartisan initiative, the child tax credit, is being reworked. The cost of that dramatic expansion will be paid for by joint filers, meaning, in other words, couples or families will pay the cost. I want to take a moment to contrast this attack on the family. It's an attack on a family approach with actual American families around the country that we're looking at and that we're speaking about. This anti-family bill is not only coming at a time when families have to pay more for groceries and pay for more gas and higher prices at the gas pump, but also when families are silently fighting other unnamed pandemic and problems. And those are the worsening problems of mental health and drug addiction issues in our country today, which they are abundant. So I asked my colleagues, why this bill? It doesn't build families back better. It builds them broke. It helps a few, not all. It doesn't create jobs or support working families. It creates more reliance on big government socialism. And why now? When inflation is so high and when so many of our friends and families are suffering to find the help that they need. It goes without saying that the COVID pandemic has played and is playing a large role in the staggering rise in drug overdoses and increase in mental health crises and homelessness over the past couple of years. Americans were locked down unnecessarily, long periods of time. Jobs were lost, and the economic engine of our nation was brought to a screeching halt. Children lost out on valuable education opportunities and wondered when they were going to be able to see their friends again. Student colleges, experiences were changed forever. And working parents had to juggle schooling and full-time child care in addition to holding down their own jobs. Throughout this turbulent time, Americans felt lonelier and more detached than ever before, especially in my lifetime. It is a dream too often turned into a nightmare for an increasing number of Americans, a promising future robbed by deadly drug addiction. And sadly, it is more common now than ever before. According to the latest data from the National Center for Health Statistics, we lost over 100,000 American lives due to drug overdoses from April the 20th to April the 21st. That's not including the last 8 months. This is an increase of 30% from the year before. Think of all the open seats that will be at the dinner table for Christmas, lunch, or dinner. The futures that will never be fully realized. The families forever mourning the loss of a loved one. It's happening every day. We have these known issues made worse by a pandemic. There's no doubt. And yet, Democrats' response has been to open our borders and allow cartels to profit off of trafficking fentanyl and other deadly substances into our country. It's hard to imagine. Through the first 9 months of this year, the monthly average of fentanyl seized is 830 pounds a month. 830 pounds. Compare that to a monthly average of 321 pounds in 2018 to 2020. Now, that's way too many, but 830 pounds a month. 2,000 pounds can kill 200 million people. 200 million. That's 3/4 of the people in this country. Instead, we need to look at how we can address mental health and break the cycle of drug addiction and homelessness. It should be a priority in this building. There are solutions out there if we approach the problem the right way. It's clear that the money we're spending in the programs that we have in place now are not working. We need to open our eyes. We should be strengthening the family. We know strong families are the backbone of a strong community, and right now Democrats are too focused on sneaking past these progressive wish list items like climate police, taxes that puts us on par with communist countries, into a bill under the guise that will help all Americans. I'm here to help Americans, but the right way. All Americans. Last year, Congress got to work on passing bills to help with COVID relief. While some relief funds were certainly necessary for those who needed the most, the government's role quickly went from providing targeted stimulus to unchecked spending month by month. And this year, my Democratic colleagues assumed a predictable response to every problem they faced. Just throw money at it. Folks, money is not the answer. People are the answer. And the money they want to use will be paid for, yes, by the American people. It's not government money. It's the American people, and it's the taxpayers' money. But pumping more money into the economy is not the solution. It did not work for American families earlier this year when was passed a $1.9 trillion spending package that was passed off as COVID relief. It caused prices to rise, inflation to spike. It didn't address most of the issues families still face today. We've spent all this money and we've got worse problems. We throw money around in the name of solving problems. And if we do it this time, it won't work again it won't work this time either. We're putting the country more in debt, and we're making problems worse. People are starting to figure it out. You know, as a football coach for 40 years, I know a little bit about strategy. You know, I was a defensive guy. I like strategy. That's part of playing defense. A good defensive player must make a decision based on what is learned in practice and what their experience tells them. Then they have the confidence to commit to that decision. But the key to winning the matchup is to always watch where the ball is if you're on defense. We always taught our players, play the game with your eyes. If you go to any practice, you will hear this. Defensive players, play with your eyes and trust your eyes. Offenses will throw motion across formation. They'll run a trick play. They try to get your eye off the ball. You have the chance to go out there and stop the play if you trust your eyes. At the same thing happening, and is happening right now, we're playing defense. And we cannot take our eye off, not the ball, but this bill. We've got to trust our eyes. The American people have to trust their eyes. Democrat colleagues are trying all sorts of tricks, political spin, to convince Americans that their Build Back Better bill is a championship caliber win. They're banking on Americans to be too busy and to be caught up in the holidays to understand what is really in this bill. But here's the thing. Americans should know that the Democrats' reckless tax and spend spree is nothing more than a gimmick, a trick play designed to fool the defense and the American people, to help a few, not everybody. The American people should trust their eyes. This bill is not thoughtful policy that will change American lives. It is a way to increase big government, socialism, and pay for it by increasing taxes on not a few, not the 1%, but everybody in this country. Because of the way they're doing this bill, using an obscure procedure tool that's called reconciliation, everything in this bill has to be budgetary, as in related to the budget. Sometimes this is useful when you're trying to create a fair, simpler tax code or makes tax cuts. It's also a tool used to bypass majority because it only needs 51 votes. But the reconciliation process actually limits what Congress can do to address most issues facing Americans because everything in this bill has to be budget related. Reconciliation does not allow Congress to thoughtfully construct policy or to make improvements that do not spend money. Throwing money at existing programs or even creating new programs that simply send out checks is not the same as making meaningful change. So when my Democratic colleagues say that their bill will help Americans, it will, a few, but not very many. All it does is throw money at problems, which is, as we've seen, is not what our country needs. This reckless tax and spend spree creates a cradle-to-grave entitlement society, but does not actually help people in that society. If we really wanted to help American families, we'd start with a bipartisan effort, meaning that we would discuss the needs of all Americans, not just a few. In this very tough time, all citizens need help. Everybody needs help. It's been a tough time. It's been a tough couple of years. But this has just been a one-way street. We have folks who represent urban and rural areas talking with each other about what American families actually need and what actually works. We could create targeted, thoughtful bills that didn't rely on budget, gimmicks, or party lines to pass. So, we can't let our Democratic colleagues fool Americans. Their Build Back Better bill isn't making American families better. It's not helping Americans who are suffering from mental health issues. It's not helping our country's drug addiction problem. It's an anti-family bill that will make our country more dependent on big government. And it's spending money the wrong way. I yield the floor.
Mr. President.
Senator